Welcome to Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. Today is February 5th, and I want to talk about a subject that really, it's one that we need to hit every single year. Every single off season, we need to focus on the most creative entry and exit routes that we can come up with. And I know I've covered this before, but I'm sure it bears talking about again. I want to talk about creeks and ditches. In fact, I think this topic is so important and so valuable to a whitetail bow hunter that I wrote a whole book about it several years ago. Peterson's Bowhunting magazine used to have a book publishing division, and I wrote this book for them and put a DVD in the back of it, and a lot of information over the years that I'd gained from this style of hunting. But they went out of business, so I bought their whole inventory of books. So I've got a bunch of them. So if you're interested in it, just pop down to the description and there's a link there, and we can get you one of these books. And anyway, let's dive into the topic. You don't need the book. We're going to talk about it here today. So first we're going to hear from our sponsors, and then we'll go into more detail about how to hunt creeks and ditches. Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails is brought to you by Redneck Blinds, Code of Silence Apparel, Hunt Stand Pro Whitetail, Fuse Accessories, Elevate Tree Stands, B3 Releases and Broadheads, and Hoyt. These terrain features serve two purposes to the bow hunter. One is entry and exit, like I talked about, but the other one is the features themselves create funnels that you can take advantage of, especially during the rut when the bucks are out looking for does. So let's take a look first at where they occur. I mean, creeks obviously are going to be at the bottoms of valleys. They're pretty straightforward. The easiest way to use them is just pop in the creek at one location, follow the creek, which keeps you out of the line of sight in most cases of the deer nearby. And if there's a little bit of water, then it removes all of your ground scent. But if nothing else, it gives you a place that's, pretty low impact for sneaking in. And there are a lot of crossings on creeks. And that's one thing that you're going to want to look for, because those are super easy to find, pretty easy to hunt, and they're well used during the rut. But not all crossings are the same, because obviously you've got to have, the more deer you compress into one spot, the better. So I like the ones that are on the middle of an S-curve. So if you take a big S-curve, you'll have a high bank on the outside corners of those S's. Where the creek makes a bend, it'll undercut the bank and it'll form a steeper bank. But in the middle, between the two curves, in the middle of the S, usually there's a pretty gradual spot there where the deer can cross. So even if you look at an aerial photo or a topo map of your hunting area, you should be able to see these stand locations just jump right out at you. The middle of the S, and that's going to be normally the best spot for hanging a tree stand. You can use the creek itself, or even if it's dry, you can use the creek bed to sneak in and out of these spots without the deer knowing. So that's one obvious one. The ditches are just a little bit tougher to hunt because they're not quite so obvious, but I think they're actually more effective for the bow hunter, because where the creek is easy to find and hunt, it's a little bit tougher from the standpoint of keeping your scent from getting to the deer, your human scent in the tree while you're on stand. Down in the valleys, the wind wants to swirl. So if the wind is crossing the valley, blowing, let's say at a 90-degree angle to the creek, then you're going to get a lot of swirling down in those valleys. So you've got to hunt those spots pretty much only when the wind is blowing either down or up the creek, depending upon which side has the least number of trails and the safest for you. So let's assume, again, you're going to the creek, you're coming in from the downstream side, you go up until you hit the first good crossing. Well, if you're hunting that with the wind coming down the valley, you should be fine. Or if it's really still, you can take advantage of just the little gradual thermals that take place when the valley is in shade. When the sun is down in the valley, the thermals are going to tend to go up, but when it's in shade, which is most of the time while we're hunting, early and late in the day, then the thermals are going to carry your scent down right along with the direction that the water would go. So now let's come back around to ditches. So with ditches, we don't need to quite be as, let's say, careful with how our scent blows, because we can go up the ditch to the very top where the deer go around the head of the ditch. And in this location, then the wind can be coming straight towards the ditch, right off the upper, the higher ground, and carry your scent above the heads of the deer. And you don't want to be tempted generally by stopping along the way. If you're going up the ditch, you generally want to go all the way to the top, because that's going to be the safest spot for playing the wind. There should be a really heavy trail there too. So that's a really, again, a very simple pattern, easy to find and pretty easy to hunt. But you do have to probably do a little bit more work there, because ditches generally aren't as open as creeks. So sneaking through there is going to be a lot tougher. I've found that you really need to get a chainsaw out during this time of the year, during the off season, and go in there and clear a walking path. If you do that, then by the fall, hopefully not a whole lot more has fallen in there, and you can go right up through that ditch really quick and really quiet. And I've had some really amazing hunts that way. I've had spots where, I've gone through ditches and I've gotten pretty close to my tree stand, and I'll pop out and there'll be does bedded, 15 yards away or 10 yards away. They're just like, they had no idea I was there. And I've had situations too where I've been in ditches sneaking to a morning tree stand, catch this, and I've had bucks cross, those intermediate crossings I'm talking about that are part way up the hill. I've had them cross like less than 10 feet away. I remember one, he was, I could see him up on the bank, and he was silhouetted. So I got right up against the side of the ditch, and I almost could have touched him when he crossed. Fortunately it was early in the morning and the thermals were coming down and I was below him, but he was just a few feet away when he crossed that ditch. So they don't know you're there. They don't know you're coming and going. That's the beauty of using these terrain features for hunting. So I don't want to overdo it. I know, like I said, we cover this a lot, but gosh, there's so many people that don't take maximum advantage of the terrain when they're sneaking in and out of their hunting spots, or even taking maximum advantage of the terrain when they're choosing their stand locations, from the point of funneling the deer. So it's good to cover this stuff every year, and I appreciate you bearing with me, and we'll keep bringing you more of this kind of off-season content. Bowhunting whitetails is mostly an in-season series. It's all about the hunt. It's about the deer we're hunting, how we're going about it, how we're reacting to the weather every single day of the season. It really has its best life in the fall. But I don't want our viewers to miss out on some of these topics that we can talk about during the off season too. So keep checking back. I appreciate you joining me. We'll see you back here soon for the next episode of Hoyt's Bowhunting Whitetails. And remember to always dream big.